From the iconic Saw 6 to the horrifying Jezebel, director Kevin Grudert has worked on some of the best horror films ever made. And now it seems like he's looking to add another name to that list. He has confirmed that he's finally wrapped up filming Saw 10.
Low budget, and so they were looking for people that would work for cheap. and I fit the bill perfectly.
Grudert, who has previously directed Saw 3D and Saw 6, tweeted photos from the film's wrap party on Friday. He said that the shoot was challenging and that he got COVID near the last 2 weeks of the film's production. But he sounds pretty excited about the start of the editing process. He's finally done with filming Saw 10, and although it was not the easiest film to make, simple movies are rarely worthwhile in the end. He said that working on it was one of the most fulfilling and exhilarating experiences of his life, despite the fact that the majority of those participating were new to the Saw franchise. The cast and crew were doing the absolute best they could, and the entire film was shot in gritty settings in Mexico City. Grudert said that he's eager to begin editing the film and that his fingers are shaking with excitement. He could probably savor that feeling because he won't be feeling anything in his fingers once he's finished with that edit. It's the most grueling part of the process, so it's going to take a lot of time. The director added that Saw 10 will remain the title of the movie because it gets down to the basics of what made Saw so exciting. And speaking of getting back to the basics, the new Saw will mark Tobin Bell's return.
Where is he? Where is he? That's a problem you're gonna have to solve before it's too late. Jazz about.
Bet you never saw that coming. Sorry, I had to. Bell played Jigsaw in the original Saw films. It's going to be so great finally getting to see him reprising his role again. Honestly, things were getting kind of stale without him. Grudert also confirmed a bunch of other members of the cast in his series of tweets. Shawnee Smith, Sinuv Lund, Stephen Brand, and Renata Vaca include some of the names he mentioned. After their appearance in Spiral, it's unlikely that Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson will appear in another film, but Dr. Lawrence Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, might yet fall victim to a trap once again. Will the cast be the film's saving grace, though? After all, Saw hasn't had a track record for good films lately. Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger wrote the last Saw movie, Spiral, which was directed by Saw 2, Saw 3, and Saw 4 director Darren Lynn Bousman. With the production receiving mediocre reviews and only grossing roughly $40 million at the box office, the movie was generally seen as a letdown. For an ever-diminishing core fan base, the oppressive ugliness of the Saw franchise was its most redeeming quality. The damp nastiness of both its difficult-to-stomach gore and grim descent into hell worldview gave this series a distinctive air, and for those who weren't as devoted, the plotline of each film was impressively committed to a complex, if confusing, mythology, rather than a simple repetition of formula. It was compellingly wacky and shocking. Although the 2017 soft reboot promised something new, it was predictably more of the same.
Offer the most flesh in order to save their life. The choice is yours.
Another indication that the Saws had seen better days, but it was difficult for most to justify sticking with the films until the bitter 3D end. Similar to having to listen to a story that goes on for way too long told by someone you end up slowly pulling away from. So now it's up to Grudert to revive the entire Saw franchise now. No pressure, Kevin. The original Saw tortured moviegoers with its premiere almost 2 decades ago. And ever since then, that eerie little puppet has haunted our nightmares. Several innocent victims have been put through a variety of lethal games to judge if they should live or die for their alleged transgressions, all at Jigsaw's command. Since the release of the first Saw film in the 2000s, there have been 9 sequels that have progressively gotten worse. I'd like to tell the directors that people watch your films to watch other people get tortured, not to get tortured by watching your films themselves. So, what's number 10 got in store for us then? Official narrative elements have not yet been made public. The company and the filmmakers want to keep everything a surprise until the big premiere. Meanwhile, claims that it was informed that Saw 10 was going to grab people's hearts, both literally and figuratively. With all new twisted, cunning traps and new games to uncover, the film seems to be a prequel centering on Tobin Bell. According to Twitter user Viewer Anon, who is a well-known industry insider, and while the writers from Jigsaw and Spiral are reportedly involved, there will be no story connection to previous movies. One thing is for sure though, with Tobin Bell's involvement and the fact that this will be him properly returning to the franchise after so long, Grudert should make good use of the opportunity and take a deep look at Jigsaw's character. Now might be the right time to break away from the disjointed obsession that Saw has with flashbacks now. I want a full-fledged psychoanalysis of the character. And it's not like horror films aren't doing that lately. Revenge driver backstories had gotten stale for a very long time. Instead, treating your villains with a little bit of sensitivity goes a long way in creating a memorable character, and even more so in making a memorable film. Anything from exploring his childhood to taking a look at the religious undertones that have always underlined his punishment, anything can if it's based around Bell. And if he pulls that off, then there's no way Kevin could mess up the film. Since the beginning of the franchise, Bell has been a part of it. He plays the infamous Jigsaw killer, who uses sophisticated, scary, and usually fatal traps to teach his victims a lesson. In a strict sense, he never actually gets blood on his hands. Well, not literally at least. Despite Kramer's early death in the series, Bell kept reappearing, and yes, he was actually and completely dead. The movies preserved Kramer's legacy by having his disciples carry on his games through flashbacks and voice recordings. Dr. Lawrence Gordon and Adam, two strangers who wake up in a rundown lavatory with no memory of how they got there, were the main characters in the first entry in the franchise. They quickly came to the realization that they are a part of the Jigsaw Killer's bizarre game and are stuck with a dead body. Although it first received unfavorable reviews, the film went on to become a box office hit and a fixture of the horror genre. Jigsaw's iconic "would you like to play a game" dialogue is a part of pop culture history at this point. Though still there's more to be said about the franchise's appeal, it's about sin and atonement and the obvious failure of the justice system, something we are all too familiar with these days, and it's about one man taking control of things that would be unattainable through peaceful means. If any of those things sound good to you, then you're probably eager to find out Saw 10's release date. But when exactly is the new movie coming? You needn't sacrifice a body part to get the answers. We've got all the clues for you right here. Saw 10 will hit theaters on October 27th this year. If mutilations and mysteries are your things, this sets up your Halloween preparations for the year wonderfully. That'll have to do it for Kevin Grudert's confirmation of the 10th Saw finally finishing its filming.